Good morning, afternoon, or evening, cats and dogs. This video will focus on the lesson 8.8 guided notes on solving multi-step inequalities. We are going to begin with questions 1 through 11. The bell may ring during this time, so just ignore it. For these questions, we want to solve each of the following inequalities, then graph the solution on a number line. We are going to solve these two-step inequalities or equations with variables or inequalities with variables on both sides, or those that contain grouping symbols, the same way we solved equations. So in number 1, we have 6x plus 15 is greater than 9. We want to begin by getting rid of our constant of 15. The inverse of adding by 15 is to subtract 15. This will get us 6x is greater than negative 6. 9 minus 15 is negative 6. Then, for our second and final step, we want to divide both sides by 6. That's the inverse of multiplying by 6. That will get us a solution of x is greater than negative 1. This will have an open circle because it's greater than and not equal to. If it were equal to, then we would have a closed circle. Notice how we line up our numbers, smallest on the left, largest on the right. So negative 2, negative 1, 0 from left to right. Since its x is greater than, we are going to shade to the right. Our number lines are no different than when we had our one-step inequalities, so we're going to go through those pretty quickly. All right, let's take a look at question number 2. We have negative 16 is less than 6r minus 4. We want to get rid of our constant of minus 4 here, so we're going to add 4 to both sides. Negative 16 plus 4 is negative 12. So we have negative 12 is less than 6r. Just like our last question, the inverse of multiplying by 6 is to divide by 6. So I get negative 2 is less than r. Notice how I don't need to flip my inequality symbol around here or in number 1 because I divided by a positive 6. I do suggest, though, for number 2, rewriting it with the variable on the left. So I do suggest rewriting it as r is greater than negative 2. Both of these solutions have the exact same meaning, so both would be correct. It is easier to graph, though, if the variable is on the left-hand side. So I put my numbers in order from least to greatest from left to right, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. We have an open circle at negative 2 since it's greater than negative 2 but not equal to negative 2. Greater than, just like our last question, means we're going to shade to the right. Don't forget, if you need to pause the video at any time because we're moving through these too quickly, don't be afraid to do so. All right, question number 3. We've got to mix in some decimals here. The inverse of adding by 6.8 is to subtract 6.8, so we'll do that first. 10.5 minus 6.8 is 3.7, so we get 3.7 is greater than b over 7. The inverse of dividing by 7 is to multiply by 7. No need to flip the symbol around since we're multiplying by a positive. So we get 25.9 is greater than b. Don't forget to practice plugging these into your calculator as well to make sure that you're calculating them correctly. I do suggest rewriting it with a variable on the left. That's not the same as flipping the symbol. We're just rewriting the same inequality as an equivalent inequality by rewriting it with a variable on the left. Now I chose to count by tenths, so 25.8, 25.9, 26, although you could do 24.9, 25.9, 26.9, or something similar. This one, like our last two, is also going to have an open circle. Its b is less than, so we're going to be shading to the left. Again, all of these are either a less than or greater than, which is why we have an open circle. All right, let's take a look at our next 3. Number 4 is also a two-step inequality. So we're going to start by adding 10 to both sides. That's the inverse of subtracting by 10. That will get us k over negative 5 is less than or equal to 2. Negative 8 plus 10 is 2. Then we will multiply both sides by negative 5. That's the inverse of dividing by negative 5. But because we multiplied both sides of our inequality by a negative number, as I'm going to highlight in yellow here, that means we need to flip our inequality symbol around. So for our final solution, instead of k is less than or equal to, we will get k is greater than or equal to negative 10. Put our numbers in order from least to greatest, negative 11, negative 10, negative 9. This one is a closed circle because it's greater than or equal to. And since it's greater than or equal to, we are going to shade to the right. Just like this. All right, number 5, I do suggest adding the opposite for this one because you've got your variable coming after subtraction, which did not happen on any of our previous inequalities. So we're going to rewrite this as 8 plus negative 1t is less than negative 10. Now let's use our inverse operations. The inverse of adding by 8 is to subtract 8. That will get us negative 1t is less than negative 10 minus 8, which is negative 18. The inverse of multiplying by negative 1 is to divide by negative 1. Like our last question, though, we're dividing by a negative, or multiplying by a negative, as it was in number 4. So we're going to flip our inequality symbol around. So the t is going to stay on the left, but our symbol goes from less than to greater than. And of course, negative 18 divided by negative 1 is positive 18. This one, like our first 3, is an open circle. Watch your order of your numbers from least to greatest left to right, so 17, 18, 19. Since our final solution is t is greater than 18, we are going to shade to the right, just like this. All right, so now we're going to get into some more complicated inequalities. These we might have to simplify first and then solve. So in number 6, because the variable comes after subtraction and I'm going to simplify, I'm going to add the opposite and rewrite minus 3y as plus a negative 3y. Now let's combine our like terms. The negative 3y plus the 1y will get us a negative 2y. So now it's a two-step inequality. Your goal is always to get it down to a two-step inequality and then a one-step inequality. Let's get rid of that plus 1. The inverse of that is to subtract 1. That will get us negative 2y is greater than or equal to 4. Now divide both sides by negative 2. And since we're dividing both sides by a negative number, we are going to flip our inequality symbol around. So we'll get y is less than or equal to negative 2. We really want to be careful with all these steps. Keep in mind, with the increasing number of steps we have, the easier it is to make mistakes. It's not a big deal, but we want to keep all of these important things in mind, like adding the opposite, switching the symbol when we multiply or divide by a negative, and so forth. Since it's less than or equal to, we are going to have a closed circle at negative 2, and less than or equal to means we are going to shade to the left. So our final solution will look like this. All right, let's move on to number 7, 8, and 9. So number 7, we have distributive property involved in this question. So let's distribute our 4 into the parentheses. So I'll do 4 times x and 4 times 3. So we'll get 4x minus 12 is greater than 6. We're going to start solving this by adding 12 to both sides. That will get us 4x is greater than 18. The inverse of multiplying by 4 is to divide by 4. This will get us a decimal here, so we'll get x is greater than 4.5. No need to switch anything around since we divided by a positive value. Now, I put on my number line 4, 4.5, and 5. You could do 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, whatever is easiest for you. This is an open circle at 4.5, and since it's greater than, we are going to shade to the right. Number 8, another distributive property question. Let's distribute this negative 4 into the parentheses. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Let's get rid of this plus negative 8. The inverse of that is to add a positive 8 to both sides or subtract negative 8. That will get us 11 is less than negative 4x. Divide both sides by negative 4, and since we're dividing both sides by a negative value, we are going to flip that inequality symbol around. So 11 divided by negative 4 is negative 2.75. The less than symbol became a greater than symbol, like this. We flipped only the symbol around, and then we should rewrite it with the variable on the left, which does not change the meaning. So from this green highlighted statement to the statement below, those are equivalent solutions. We just rewrote it with the variable on the left. So I chose to count by 0.25 or by quarters, so I put negative 2.75 in the center, negative 3 to the left, negative 2.5 to the right. But that's not the only way you can count, as long as you count evenly. We've got another open circle here, and again, our final solution, ignore that bell, is x is less than negative 2.75, so we're going to shade to the left. Let's go ahead and do that. And we are going to get our graph or number line that looks like this. All right, we have a handful more questions to see. Now we're going to have grouping symbols and variables on both sides. None of these are going to be a no solution or all real numbers kind of situation. Doesn't mean you may not see that in the future with inequalities like we did with equations, but we're not going to kick it up that far of a notch, at least not at this point. So let's take a look at number 9. What I would suggest you do first is add the opposite, but also distribute. So I definitely want to get rid of these parentheses as one of my first few steps. So we have 5a plus negative 8 is greater than or equal to 4a minus 12, which I wrote as 4a plus negative 12. 4 times a is 4a, 4 times 3 is 12, but again, a minus 12 becomes plus a negative 12. Now we want to get the variables on the same side. 4a is smaller than 5a, so I suggest moving that. The less negatives we can have, the better for sure here. So let's subtract 4a since it's a positive. That will get us 1a, or just a on the left, plus negative 8 is greater than or equal to negative 12. It's important you keep the numbers on the same side of the inequality that they were already on. Now it's just a one-step inequality. We're going to add 8 to both sides. That's the inverse of adding a negative 8. That will get us a is greater than or equal to negative 4. Notice how I did not need to flip the inequality symbol around here. Now, if you choose to do it differently, like subtract 5a to both sides here, you may need to flip the inequality symbol around. So we really want to be careful how we do this. This is another reason to move the smaller variable expression to try to avoid some of those negatives at the end. So I put my number line, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3 from left to right. This one is a closed circle because it's greater than or equal to. Again, that line underneath indicates that it's going to be a closed circle. Since it's greater than or equal to, we are going to shade to the right, just like this. All right, we have 2 more for this video. Let's take a look at number 10. First thing I want to do is distribute this negative 2 into the parentheses. So take negative 2 times k and negative 2 times 1 will get us negative 2k plus negative 2 is less than negative 16 plus 5k. Negative 2k is smaller and it's negative, so I suggest adding 2k to both sides. Again, not the only way to do this, but if you subtract 5k on both sides, you're probably going to need to flip the inequality symbol as one of your final steps. So we'll be left with negative 2 on the left, negative 16 plus 7k on the right. Now the inverse of adding a negative 16 is to add a positive 16. So we will get 14 is less than 7k. Now divide both sides by 7 and we will get a solution of 2 is less than k. Although I do suggest rewriting it with the variable on the left, so k is greater than 2. All right, we did not flip the symbol around here. All we did was rewrite it with the variable on the left. I'm going to have an open circle at 2, and since its k is greater than 2, I am going to shade to the right. All right, last one. And these get pretty difficult towards the end. They might be a little easier on your test than we have in your guided notes, but I'm also trying to prepare you for algebra, not just for your unit test. So we have to distribute twice here, the 2 into the first set of parentheses, the 5 into the second. So the first set will get us 2p plus 18. Don't forget our plus 6. It's easy to drop that off. On the right-hand side, we'll have 5p minus 15, which I did rewrite as 5p plus negative 15. I would suggest combining the 18 and 6, which are like terms together, to get 2p plus 24 is greater than or equal to 5p plus negative 15. 2p is smaller than 5p, so that's what I would move. It's positive, so I would subtract 2p from both sides. That will get us 24 is greater than or equal to 3p plus negative 15. Now it's a two-step inequality. Let's add 15 to both sides. To get 39 is greater than or equal to 3p. Divide both sides by 3 to get a solution of 13 is greater than or equal to p. I would rewrite it with the variable on the left, which would be p is less than or equal to 13. Again, if you write 13 is greater than or equal to p, that's correct as well. Now, this is going to have a closed circle this time because it's less than or equal to. And since it's less than or equal to, we are going to shade to the left, just like this. All right, so we, of course, will see some more practice with this. And in our next video, we are also going to mix in some word problems as well. Thanks for listening.